Hello, my name is Sawrey, and I'm really glad to be speaking at Write the Docs Prague 2020 virtual conference. I'll be talking about the top 10 things we can do better in the remote job onboarding. I must apologize to you in advance because most of the time I will not be looking you directly in the eye because I have to navigate my really complicated 2-camera and 2-monitor setup. But I've compensated by creating my virtual avatar who will be looking at you and looking you directly in the eyes throughout my whole talk. So, okay, let's start then. Let me tell you a little bit about myself. I'm a technical writer and copywriter with roughly 6 years of purely technical writing experience. Currently, I'm working as an independent consultant at an international company that creates billing and business intelligence products for communication service providers. My tech background ranges from writing scripts for Eurovision winning performances to writing manuals for multimedia server systems and installation guides for real planetarium structures, or some of you might know me from talking about data security and handing out chameleon stickers from my days with Scottish Labs data security and encryption company. Sometimes I take on really weird and exciting projects like writing music for attraction park games or providing artist relations management and technical support for my favorite rock stars in a company that makes digital MIDI guitar controllers. I'm also a member and co-founder of the Kyiv branch of Women Who Code Kyiv organization that helps women in technology. Or you probably know me from Write the Docs Prague 2017, various API the Docs or API Days event, or even Write the Docs 2019, when I was one of the speakers and I was compelled to add this rock and roll logo for 2019, as this year was so much more rock and roll than the current reality because, well, we could still go to live rock and roll shows. So my story started to unfold in winter 2019, remember? 2019. At some point I realized that I loved my job, but I couldn't take another day working in the office for a single employer at all. So pretty amicably we parted our ways and I secured several consulting clients and transitioned to independent work from home. Here is a picture of me from back then, displaying me with a big smirk on my face because I had no idea what was coming. I had no idea about the taxes and basically running everything and all the paperwork on my own and the hassle that comes with it. As for simply working from home, well, I had half a decade worth of previous work experience of working as a freelance translator and tech copywriter before I transitioned into technical writing proper about 6 years ago. So I was really looking forward to working from home in this home office in peace. One of my only concerns back then was that would I be able to cope, would I be able to, secure enough clients to sustain myself as an independent entrepreneur and contractor. But at some point, thankfully, I had more work than I could handle. And at the same time, I was approached by a company who wanted to hire me as a technical writer, contractor, as a senior technical writer and consultant. So one of the issues they had that they insisted I insisted I would be working 100% full-time. I insisted I would be working 100% remotely, and it was definitely not unusual, but not the preferred way to work for that potential client. And you know what happened next? Somebody ate a bat or a pangolin in China, and we all found ourselves in the midst of the pandemic, freaking out, washing hands 100 times a day and staying at home 24/7. I clearly remember spending my first days of the quarantine frantically aggregating my remote working experience into an article while still interviewing for the company that I've mentioned before. Well, needless to say, the full remote work was no longer an issue in this changing world, and I did sign the work contract. happily agreeing to become one of the first guinea pigs at a non-remote centered workplace. And this talk is an aggregation of all that experience and previous experience combined with my remote and non-remote onboarding processes for different clients when I was onboarded or I had to onboard new people. And this talk sometimes oscillates between viewpoints of an existing new employee who has to onboard a newbie and the newbie proper. So, in this ever-changing world, I hope that you'll find both of these viewpoints useful. So let's start. Here goes number 1. Revisit and update your newcomers guide if you have it, which turns us into slide 1.1. If you're used to onboarding most people on site in the office, the chances are that the newbie guide is severely out of date because it's always easier to tell somebody just to go talk to Mary, go to John, and they'll be able to explain and set up everything for you. And if you're using tools specific to your industry or your own ERP or other business products, chances are most of the names and abbreviations won't make sense to a newbie at all, so make sure you're using accessible human language. Well, for instance, when I just entered the field of data security or telecommunication service providers, dictionaries and Google have been my best and constant friends throughout, just so you know, plow through. And if for some reason you do not have a newcomer's guide yet, you should create it ASAP. You may say that you don't need it as you're a small startup, but I always say that there will be more people always, and you strive to have more people and to onboard them effectively. And as a small startup, you should definitely want new people to come and join you, right? Growth and all that. So what should go into the newcomer's guide? I'd say that everything that you'll be sick of explaining more than once in a Zoom call. By the way, many training sessions that I've received as a newbie have been recorded, time-coded, and split into comprehensive onboarding videos later on, and you can do the same thing. Well, if you're ready for the process in your department to fall apart, when you're away just because you didn't take the time to put something down in writing, well, be my guest, of course. Sarcasm. But do put obvious things in there. What kind of things? Things that are obvious because have been explained to you, or you were the ones who set the rules. But you know, everyone has different perception and worldview, and that perception can be wildly different in two people, even if they have very similar cultural and professional background. If you're the only documentarian where you are in your workplace, or if you're the writer or that non-writer but you just happen to be designated person task who is creating the newcomer's guide, I want you to think like a landscape designer or an architect. An urban legend has it that, you know, best way to build pathways in the park is not by planning them in advance, but just by planting simple grass and seeing where people will go and leave their marks. And then you do create pathways, proper pathways in the park, following those humans' footsteps. So you should strive to do the same with your newcomer's guide. If something gets asked often, or by often I mean more than 2-3 times, put it in there, even if it only fits into some miscellaneous category, and it will greatly benefit everyone when it finally gets put in writing. So, and again, I want to remind you that everyone is different and has different learning styles, so it's a good idea to have both text and video versions, at least, you know, for the most crucial moments that you want to put into the style guide. Okay, let's go to number 2. Number 2 also comes down to the difference in perception between humans. Well, presume that new hire is a smart and competent person who just doesn't have the exact same experience as you have, even if you have been using the same tools. They have a different brain, they have their own, they are smart and they have the ability to learn, and if you don't know something, don't freak out. You just point them into the direction of an article, maybe some learning resource, masterclass, where they can catch up. I'm pretty sure there is a thing or two they'll be able to teach you about the resource you're using. just like in the cartoon you are seeing in the slides right now, they have this core and the rest will grow around it, all those small specific skills. Well, for instance, I think I've been using Microsoft Office Suite for the better half of my life, but a few specific tasks that I had to perform for a client in early January made me revisit the learned resources for Microsoft Word because I didn't know how to do something, so you live and you learn. Let's go to number 3. The next very important thing is that you need to get on the same page regarding the hardware and software provided to the newcomer, because there can be wild surprises and wild cards dealt by the IT or purchase department to you. Well, especially if the equipment needs to be shipped from an office in a different city or country. My recent wild card was suddenly a laptop with a full touch surface. I'm pretty used to having tablets and naturally touch phone, but a touch laptop was something that I had to remember not to, be wiping from dust because when I work, because it could really cause trouble. Or my cat would, because sometimes when I work he just comes around and starts bumping his nose on the screen, and the screen naturally reacts to cat nose, so I have to fan the cat away before something important gets erased or sent out in the work Slack. So, returning to the slide, if the equipment is shipped from a different office logistically and it's prepared by people who do not really know the ins and outs of your processes in the department, you need to check for the software versions that get shipped out. For instance, some very specific and backward compatible editions or Madcap Flare or Adobe Rubber Help if you're using them. That can be make it or break it. If you use the wrong version, you can basically ruin the work that you have in the works. So also, make sure that the newbie have been given the correct access credentials to all the services necessary, but not just for day-to-day work that you use every time, but for something that only gets used occasionally, because sometimes this very trivial task would be really simple to share the credentials in an on-site office environment can become a hassle when those credentials are nowhere to be found and you all work in different time zones, so you have to wait for another person to go online, give you the credentials, or vice versa. That person has to wait until your workday starts and you provide the credentials. And also make sure that there are no potential weird issues that can be easily overlooked if most of the team works in different office. My favorite issue of that kind was when you could only access certain parts of the company's infrastructure using the VPN, and that's pretty fine for me because it's logical. But you could only gain the initial access to that VPN from that very office, and that office was like 100 miles plus away from my local branch. Okay, let's go to number 4. And number 4 stems from the previous one, and it's probably one of my most favorite points because it's hard to be non-paranoid after spending 2.5 years working in data security. So have the talk about security. And now repeat after me. I will not send passwords over an unencrypted means of communication, or simply, I will not be sending passwords over email or Slack or Teams. Because no matter at which stage you are as a company and how often you hire new people, make sure that proper security policies are known to everyone and that proper security training is provided to every new person. Well, to be honest, between you and me, I'd run security training at least every 6 months because, the passwords on sticky notes sent over WhatsApp or Slack email or some phishing links as just the invisible enemy that's just waiting to bring a huge GDPR or CCPA fine on your head. The fact that proper security is a collective responsibility is the hill I'm ready to die on, okay? Let's move on to number 5 now. We all arrive at new jobs at different levels and with different immediate responsibilities and tasks. So some only start working after like several weeks of training sessions. Sometimes we're just thrown headfirst into some really urgent task, writing and editing, so we have actual working tasks from the day one. And while I insist on obligatory security training, as you remember from the previous point, I think that all onboarding training should be provided taking the workload into consideration. For instance, a person who is already operating under a very tight deadline, in addition to the overall stress of being the newcomer, should not be given extensive tour into the company's history or a stress test testing their knowledge of second or third language just to understand how to grade them into some internal metrics. Well, that's always cool, but not while the person is putting out wildfires where they can. So similarly, if the product or products are complicated and require special training for navigating them, at least an introductory overview of the product is recommended before its documentation can be reworked by the newcomer. So do not over-challenge people without a good reason. Let's go to number 6. Yeah. I must confess that I owe the copyright to this point, at least in part, to Write the Docs conference. I mean that part where the code of conduct encourages everyone, not to form circles, but to keep that open Pac-Man shape that allows anyone to join. And it's not that easy to notice that a new person who is a remote worker, at least remote related to the rest of the team, when the team is in one place and just one person gets hired for some position from a different office or fully remotely like me. It's important that that person is not excluded based on some minor trait, that different trait that they different makes them stand out from the rest of the people in the department. For example, people from the office in the same city will probably hang out together, at least in the virtual space, or maybe even meet for drinks or coffee. And offices in different cities will all have their own microcosm and kind of atmosphere. So also many people speaking the same language will slip into the habitual ways and use their mother tongue if there is only one person who does not speak that language. And yes, it's also harder for everyone to speak English if all people but one speak like German or French or Ukrainian. And it's harder to set up a collective video call when it's only just one person who's not physically present in the same office. From my experience, the funniest way to handle that was that it's not everyone in the same space who are stuck onto their laptops and are all in a collective Zoom call. No, we would just come together collectively in one room, but then somebody would call up the only person not present in there and bring up their face on a large iPad screen, so that just gave, the illusion of presence. So, you just try a little bit harder, and then the proper cultural integration brings amazing results that are worth making the effort. And now let's move to number 7. Yeah. So number 7 is about building bridges and joining the dots between people, departments, tasks, and basically different people who would not meet on a day-to-day basis online or in the office. So I encourage you to introduce the newbies to people from other departments and how they can help each other. In fact, if you have departments that work on the same product but do not communicate or do not communicate enough, so aggregating everyone in the same chat room at least and introducing the newcomers there is a very good idea. Sometimes we all need to talk to the least likely person on some remote team, and they can actually help us finish the task and no one else can. From my personal experience, being very fresh in the job, I found out that for some weird reason, writers in marketing and writers in technical writing would hardly ever speak to each other. So now I'm proud to say we have a joint Slack channel called Documentarians. Yeah, the word probably rings a bell. And that's where we can collectively freak out about changes in style guides, or the fact the articles like how a period at the end of the sentence can be perceived as threatening to the younger generation. I kid you not, that was the article that caused some stir when we found it about a month ago. Like, people think that the full stop at the end of the sentence is aggressive. Okay, let's move to number 8. Next. So as humans, we strive on communication, and even the most introverted of us, they need some forms of some kind of human interaction because it fights and actually reduces the stress. And when entering a new workforce or workplace and the subsequent onboarding processes, that's also some stress. So the problem is we have enough on our plates already, all of us, so especially these days. When a newbie doesn't seem to cause problems or experience problems, when they get on seemingly fine, when they do the job very well, we just tend to direct our attention elsewhere because to some more problematic areas not related to that person, because it just feels right intuitively, like no problem, and I just do not go to this person because they're doing fine. But no, in reality, no matter how good the newcomer seems to be coping, trust me, it's always super stressful during the first few weeks. So please find some time and check in on the newcomer often. And I don't mean some long one-on-ones where you discuss everything every few days. No, just a few messages here and there. Now I'll change the slide because this building of trust, it helps the new person to adapt those short and formal communication, and it helps to uncover the talents and skills that the new employee was just too shy to bring out, and you had no idea they had them. Usually you'd never guess, that the designer can also edit videos, or that the copywriter can also create sound design or short jingles for the app. And this is a territory of there are things that things that know that you don't know, and this is a territory that you had no idea that you could even ask about. It's things that you do not know that you don't know. So uncovering such hidden talents in newcomers through simple day-to-day communication can turn out to be extremely helpful in small companies and startups alike, because everyone tends to wear several hats in there, and a new talent can bring a lot to the table. Okay, let's move to the next slide. So, as I said before, when you never get to interact with a person in the same physical space, and it's not just you, but there are also other people who oversee the onboarding process of that person, that colleague, it's just too easy to assume that somebody else had already told them something crucial, or maybe that they've been so good and diligent that they read all the pile of information and links that have been handed out to them on the very first day on the job. I wonder if anyone is even able to do that. The thing is that some small incidents are bound to happen, and that's okay, because it's how we learn through mistakes. But sometimes you need to explain something a couple of times, and several repetitions is a very small price to pay. That's several déjà vus, because then a person who understands what's going on and what's expected will repeatedly deliver excellent work. See, a déjà vu of different kind, versus a person who does not understand something, is too afraid to ask, and then they try to operate through their faulty understanding on what has to be done or how, and they just basically move blind on guesswork alone. So that's another déjà vu, because you keep noticing the same mistakes they keep doing, and you do not understand the root of it. So now you know. So you should just get used to explaining something, putting it into writing, and then also most likely delivering the information as a video recording for further reference. And also on this incident-related note, be prepared for some technical issues on both sides. Like, we're still in the midst of a pandemic, so it makes perfect sense that it's harder to stop in the office or go to a nearby cafe or co-working space, even though suddenly the communication and power internet goes down. So let's us all just be flexible and patient. And next is that Going into the mental health territory, I'd say that these days mental health and proper balance is extremely important. So I actively encourage you to create and maintain a water cooler chat, like a platform that's separate from your main work-related messaging service. And you should invite the newcomer on the very first day into that platform, because it hurts a lot when 2-3 weeks into working a new job you find out that there has been a different side to it. There was some in-office communications that you have been excluded from, maybe even talk behind your back, and you might begin to freak out. I wouldn't know, I'm very neurotic, so I find it very nice from people when they include me into the work chats, as a non-work chats on the day one. And it seems like a general rule of thumb for that smoking room or water cooler chats that the messenger that you select for it is something that you do not use for work. I mean, like, this is necessary so that a notification about a cat ma'am arriving or sometime around midnight does not give you a heart attack and you do not think that it's some kind of work emergency. I think that Telegram and Discord work extremely well for water cooled chats. So if you like to talk, Discord allows you to have a lot of smooth voice communication between different people. And Telegram has a set of funny stickers that seem to cover, every situation in life, from birthday greeting, or I love those IT related stickers like "Who needs updates?" or "Let's deploy this Friday night." And usually bosses are off limits on such water cooler chats, but it depends. I've been many chats and it really depends. So there was, it got pretty funny when, the boss was invited by mistake into one of such chats. When he realized what happened, he politely offered his way out, that he just leave by himself. But, we encouraged him to stay, and it was the only place where he could reply to the CEO's questions with a ma'am. And currently, my current team, despite being surrounded by extremely, cheerful and sunny people, we make special effort to keep the water cooler chat full of, really dark humor and spooky memes. I don't know, just maybe for the heck of it. And some of you know about my rebellious and musical background. You probably could have guessed that I will not stop on just 10 points. And to quote, this is a Spinal Tap movie, this presentation definitely goes to 11. So number 11 is, allow yourself to be human. When you feel overwhelmed, and it doesn't matter if you need to train a few newbies or just you who's got a new job, you're all stressed out, and it's a lockdown around you, just allow yourself to be human and allow yourself some vulnerability. The thing is, what we experience right now is just, not the quiet, the remote work from home or digital nomad stuff as it used to be. Well, first of all, there is hardly any digital nomad stuff that can be happening right now. You can just take a laptop and fly elsewhere without extreme precautions and tests and obligatory self-isolation periods, because it takes me an extra hour just to get dressed and go outside and then disinfect everything. So just whatever makes you happy, do it. And sometimes I'd also say that it's really important to just let yourself be, and even take a sick leave to sleep in and get your mental health together, because it's super important to take care of yourself and not break down completely. The study by IBM, as delivered by Business Insider, tells us that 54% of adults who currently work remotely want to keep working remotely full-time after the pandemic ends. Still, we'll be training more colleagues that we might never meet in person. And the world is changing so fast, so you too might change jobs during pandemic, maybe several times. And I hope that at least some of this hit parade will come in handy for you. So let's do a quick recap now, and I'll probably cut the video right now because my camera time is running short, but I'll be back in a second. So yeah, I'm back for a quick recap now. Number one is, Number one is update your newcomers guide or create one if you don't have it yet. Remember to build pathways, instructions to get people where they need to go, even if that's a weird but a frequented place in your infrastructure. Next, number two, presume that you're dealing with people who are smart and competent but are likely not to have the exact same experience as you when it comes to some specific tools and skills. Be ready to help and point them in the right direction. Number three, get a reality check regarding the hardware and software that's been given to the newcomer. Pay attention to software versions, proper connectivity, and location-based restrictions. Number four, enforce and encourage good security policies. Teach yourself to teach everybody else to never ever send passwords in plain text, please. Number five, getting used to a new job is hard enough, so don't make it harder for people by issuing non-essential training to those who already have a lot on their plate. The training needs to come at the right time and be immediately useful, or it will soon be forgotten and hence wasted. Also, do not over-challenge or under-challenge people. Number six, do not exclude anyone and keep the circle open. Make sure that everyone in the chats or emails can understand the language that's being used and do not isolate the newcomer. 7. Build connections between people, especially unlikely connections. Introduce the newcomer to as many people who can help as possible. Encourage communication between different departments and projects. The results will amaze you. Number 8. Learn about the hidden talents of your people. A simple "Hey, how's your day going?" goes a long way. Number 9. Prepare to explain and teach and repeat a lot. Don't freak out and over mistakes and incidents. Number 10. Create and nourish your water cooler chat, which is not a part of your regular work messaging infrastructure. This helps stay sane. And number 11 is allow yourself to be human. Do not be hard on yourself or too hard. Don't be hard on other people who have harder time coping. This is not a typical work from home situation for us all. So we're in the middle of pandemic and it's okay to just sometimes let it go and have a rest. And now I must confess that the secret agenda for this talk was to include this bonus number 12 because I'm a huge lover of animals and I actually hope that some of my furry family would wander into the frame, but alas. Number 12 is that I want to highlight that it's okay to bring your pets into video calls. And in fact, I insist that everyone needs to see your pet if you have it. So Zoom calls with a cat or a dog wandering into the frame, it can sometimes be the only interaction with wildlife we all had throughout the day or week. And that's 2020 for you. And this concludes my presentation. This is image comparative information, so thank you for your attention. I hope that this talk gave you something to remember or at least made you smile. I'm Sawrey, and you can find me via the handle in the corner, basically everywhere, social media, email, and feel free to reach out to me anytime. I'm always open for business and questions. So thanks again and goodbye.
As much as I want to really grill you about Eurovision, we have a lot of questions and not a lot of time, so I will do that later.
Okay.
but
so Eurovision, sorry, it was because I saw there were so many questions about it, so it was not really sexy. The company I was working for, we created the video installation for it, and since I was in charge of, the technical documentation on all those video installations and video content, I was just the person who was tasked with writing the script because no one knew that she'd be the winner. So I was just writing, 12 seconds in, lights on, 15 seconds in, singer enters the stage. So it was really technical, purely technical, and that's it.
But it's important, and Eurovision is a work of art. So really, I think you did great work. But that's my opinion. I'm really biased. I love Eurovision. Okay, but anyway, we can go back to remote onboarding since that is our topic of the moment. There are a lot of great questions. And the first one I want to start with is, who is in charge of updating the newcomers guide?
Well, in an ideal world, it would be, the manager, maybe the tech lead of the department. But as for me, usually the person who has most problems with the onboarding does this updating for the people who come after this person. Like for me, I was a newbie, and I was the one shouting and going everywhere, like remotely, of course, like, no, somebody will come after me, a new tech writer, we should update this and we should update that, because I just do not understand how we'll be able to explain it one more time, because it took like you 2 hours to explain it to me. So let's just put it in writing once and for all, and that's it. So yeah, ideally a manager, but in the real world, whoever can do that, and whoever has the knowledge that will be really useful to a newcomer's guide. So, being a blank slate really helps.
I love that. I think especially a lot of organizations really overlook a newcomer's perspective on these things. So being able to be like, did this make sense? What should we add? Absolutely makes sense to me. Another question I want to ask is, are there considerations for remote onboarding globally distributed teams? So maybe working with different time zones, etc.
Well, you should ideally pick some time throughout the 24 hours whenever you overlap with another department, so you can have some like face-to-face screen time. But really, no, I wouldn't say so. Like, you all are working towards the common goal. So I think maybe like chat messages, well, for me, it's enough, but I'm not a really touchy-feely person. So like working remotely, really, really okay for me. Yeah.
I'm honestly the exact same. So I get like really anxious on like video calls. So I'm always like, we can chat.
Yeah, absolutely. Put it in writing, and you can keep it forever in writing, because like for whichever remote clients I tend to work for, there is always this kind of task that I hate, but that still has to be done. It's like transcribing those video calls. You see yourself on video again, you cringe, you cry a lot, you cringe again, then you keep transcribing to, just to keep it, or to turn it into documentation or a task plan, something like that.
Oh, so relatable. All right. Then also kind of related, but, a lot of us are dealing with this situation where maybe half of the people are in the office and half of the people are out. You're onboarding new people and you're not really sure which place they're going to be in. Do you have any tips specifically for that kind of situation, besides maybe having a lot of video calls?
Well, having at least one video call that brings everyone together on the same page a day helps a lot, to stay together. And again, the thing that I touched upon in my presentation, like it's really easy if everyone is in one office and just one or two persons are at a different office, to overlook. And I had this like super uncomfortable way of dealing with things when everyone had to go to their own laptop and go at that video call that basically disconnected everyone from everyone else. But one part of the team gathers in one conference room, another part at a different conference room. Well, provided that the communication is clear, because having a good microphone and good speakers is really the deal breaker here. So, I think my cat is here again.
Yes.
Yeah. So having this clear communication helps a lot. And maybe try sending some small things if you can, maybe postcards, because some physical interaction between the departments is okay. You can maybe not just send something to them, but maybe order some cookies or pastries, or maybe flowers for them, with a note, and you do not even have to send it yourself. You just order it at their location, but it still adds some really personal touch.
No, that is really great. So unfortunately, we're out of time, but maybe you can, there's a lot of questions still, so maybe you can host an unconference session or let people know where to reach you.
In which chat can I stay to answer the rest of the questions?
I would say this chat is probably
Okay. So folks, I'm here and I'll be answering all the rest of the questions here. Thanks again for having me.
Great. Thank you, Karen. It was so nice to see you again.
Thanks.
And everyone else, we will have our next talk in about 5 minutes.